what's going
We
on.
interrupt our regularly scheduled program to bring you this breaking news alert.
More to,
And you're taking a live look down the hallway now as we understand the family members of some of the children killed have just walked into the courtroom. I just saw Craig Schilling, the father of Justin Schilling. Saw Nicole Beausoleil, the mother of Madison Baldwin, and the jury has reached a verdict. This has been 10 hours from yesterday and today that they have been deliberating. We understand that the jury does have a verdict. They're going to be reading that shortly. They're not really waiting on anything other than for counsel to get into the courtroom. We should be having a live look inside the courtroom right now. My colleague Sarah Michaels is in there, and she's going to be texting us updates.
Our chief investigator had the difference in these cases, and as you touched on, Mike, the focus being on storage and attention and those kinds of things. You know, there was a key focus to the extradited.
Has been prevent, whereas
You never back on again.
oh, the news really has
The people were willing to do.
FH.
Thank you, Mark. These will be people.
Karen Mattel on the FP. Good evening, Your Honor. Marielle Lehman on behalf of James Crumbley.
Mr. Crumbley, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
All right, you can be seated. I want to indicate, first of all, there was a question the media was dying to know about. I'm going to read that into the record. I consulted with the attorneys who answered the question, and so then I sent the question back in. They agreed on the answer. The jury asked, please define Article 16.13, bullet number 4, define willfully neglected and grossly negligent. The lawyers agreed to answer the question. Please see jury instruction 16.18 for the definition of gross negligence. All other definitions are contained within jury instruction 16.13. I also want to point out that there's a request by the media to ask the jury members if they would be willing to remain in the courthouse and be questioned off camera. Because there would be a verdict and no other defendant pending trial, I would have been willing to do that. But the courthouse closes at 4:30, and I have continually imposed on the courthouse for the sake of this trial and the other one. I cannot impose on the staff or the deputies any further. I also want to indicate that with regard to case number 22-279990 FH, the People versus Jennifer Crumbley, there is an order restricting pretrial publicity. It was entered on July 14th, 2022. That order will be set aside as soon as the verdict is read. I will also be issuing an order that will obviously not be made public in the courthouse until tomorrow morning. In addition, case number 22-279989 FH, the People versus James Crumbley, the same thing. The order restricting pretrial publicity was entered on July 14th, 2022, and that order will also be set aside as of the reading of the verdict. Are you ready for the jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, the reason this is significant is because I believe this is the first time in U.S. history where a school shooter is being held, or the parents are being held accountable. That's why this is significant. I think the prosecution argued that they were reckless and negligent. So right now there's nothing, there's no audio. It's
All rise for the jury.
there we go. We're starting to hear something now. Come on in, chat. Learn something together. Although this was yesterday, so we do know. I don't want to spoil it for you.
Good evening. You may be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, I know you've worked very hard. We've all been waiting your decision. I know this was a very intense decision for you all to make. I believe you've selected a foreperson. Who's the foreperson? You are the foreperson. Could you read the verdict, please?
Each count.
Sure.
Count 1, involuntary manslaughter as to Madison Baldwin. Guilty of involuntary manslaughter as to Madison Baldwin. Count 2, involuntary manslaughter as to Tate Meir. Guilty of involuntary manslaughter as to Tate Meir. Count 3, involuntary manslaughter as to Hannah St. Juliana. Guilty of involuntary manslaughter as to Hannah St. Juliana. Count 4, involuntary manslaughter as to Justin Schilling. Guilty of involuntary manslaughter as to Justin Schilling.
Thank you, foreperson. I'm going to ask Ms. Williams to pull the jury, so she's going to ask you each.
Jury in seat number 1, was that and is that your verdict?
It is.
Jury in seat number 2, was that and is that your verdict?
It is.
Jury in seat number 3, was that and is that your verdict?
It is.
Jury in seat number 4, was that and is that your verdict?
It is.
Jury in seat number 6, was that and is that your verdict?
It is.
Jury in seat number 7, was that and is that your verdict?
It is.
Jury in seat number 8, was that and is that your verdict?
It is.
Jury in seat number 9, was that and is that your verdict?
It is.
Jury in seat number 11, was that and is that your verdict?
It is.
Jury in seat number 12, was that and is that your verdict?
Yes, it is.
Jury in seat number 13, was that and is that your verdict?
It is.
Jury in seat number 14, was that and is that your verdict?
It is.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I know how hard this has been on all of you just by reading your face. I know this has been a very hard decision. We appreciate your time. I'm going to ask you to return to the jury room, and I'll be there with you in a few minutes, all right?
All rise for the jury.
I almost got up. Had a habit.
All right, you may be
The
seated.
verdict is in. We heard guilty on all 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter.
So, I think that's just going to be talking heads after that. Yeah. Was there anything else that came after? I mean, we're just going to get some... Prosecutor holds a press
Good evening.
conference.
My name is Karen McDonald. I'm the Oakland County prosecutor. I want to briefly thank Mark Keast, who was our lead trial attorney. Really, he was. So many individuals in my office, the entire office, for 2.5 years. We had assistant prosecutors and victim advocates and investigators standing in line to help us bring justice to these families. And I am forever grateful for all of these people who work in this office and serve our county and our state, because we would not be here without them. So thank you. I want to thank Lieutenant Tim Willis of the Oakland County Sheriff's Office
here.
and Special
You
Agent
gotta
Brett
click on the
Brandon of the
3
ATF.
dots.
They were instrumental in this prosecution and conviction. They were devoted, they were dedicated, and I couldn't ask for 2 more law enforcement partners that
And
were as
we have
dedicated to victims as these 2
subscribe
men.
down there.
Most of all, I'd like to thank the mothers and fathers standing to the right and left of me. It has taken unwavering courage. I will forever remain in awe of their strength and perseverance that they have shown in the last 2.5 years. This verdict does not bring back their children, but it does mark a moment of accountability and will hopefully be another step to address and end and prevent gun violence. These were egregious facts in this case. These parents could have prevented this tragedy that was foreseeable with just the smallest of efforts. They could have prevented this
So
shooting
all the
and
parents,
saved these kids' lives and protected the
do
hundreds
we
of kids in the
know,
school that day
Did it ever come out?
and all of the members of the Oxford
Whether
community that it
pharmaceuticals
devastated
were involved here?
with just basic, reasonable, ordinary care. This prosecution is important. The 3 prosecutions and convictions are critical. But we will not solve gun violence with these 3 prosecutions. Gun violence is the #1 cause of death for children in this country, and it is a public health crisis. And we will not be able to address it until we start treating it like a public health crisis. And yes, access to guns is a critical piece of that, but it's
How about
not the only piece.
pharmaceuticals and
We have to focus
SSRIs
on
and
prevention, and that's going to require us
antidepressants and
to
all
understand and
those
accept that it's
things?
not just one thing. It's the #1 cause of death
Because
for
guess
children
what?
in this country. So
You
I
can make all
refuse
the
to
gun
take a
laws you
victory lap
want.
with these prosecutions. It will not bring back these kids. We have a
People
lot
get their
more work
hands
to
on
do.
guns.
I started the
People who
commission
aren't
to address
supposed to
gun
have
violence, and we
guns
are
get their
working
hands
towards
on
a
guns.
comprehensive approach, and we have hundreds of dedicated people in all different fields to do this. And I hope that this attention that you're focused on this case,
But
one, I hope it is always
good
about
to
victims.
hold the parents accountable.
I hope that the constant naming of these
you know,
people and
until we
photos of
can
them
breach
will
the-
shift
I
to
don't
focus
know,
on
pierce
the
the-
people standing here, the
whatever
victims,
kind of veil,
the kids in that
the
school,
armor
hundreds of
that's
kids with not one
protecting
mark
the
on them that will forever be
pharmaceutical
changed.
industry. I don't
Let's
know,
focus
that
on
is
those
really
people.
gonna change.
Let's focus on what we can do to prevent this from happening again. That's where we should be focusing. That's where we should be working.
Yeah,
That's my focus. That's my office's focus.
shutting down big pharma.
And it will be far after I leave this office, which I'm not planning on doing anytime soon. So,
We need to dial that back 90%.
and finally, I want to introduce the parents who are standing beside me. This is one small step of accountability, but they want more accountability, and I'm proud to stand with them in that endeavor. I'm not going to say their names. I'm going to tell them who you are, tell you who they are. Madison Baldwin's mother, Tate Mears' father, Hannah's father, and Justin's father. They're standing here with me today, and I invite them to make remarks if they want to. But first, if Lieutenant Tim Willis would like to make some remarks. Would you like to make some remarks? No, thank you. Okay. He does not want to make remarks. No, thank you. Who would like to speak? Steve? Nicole?
Is one of the fathers, the victims.
So first of all, I just want to thank Prosecutor McDonald, Prosecutor Keys, for the marvelous job that they've done, putting in the long hours, them and their team, as well as Lieutenant Willis, Agent Brandon, and the whole law enforcement team that got us to this point. But we're not done. As Ms. McDonald said, these are just the beginning steps. There is so much more that absolutely must be done. It's crazy the way that our society is currently reacting to this. Our children are dying on a daily basis in mass murders. And we do very little about it. We complain about Second Amendment rights. Or we say, oh, there's not enough money to put for mental health issues. You name it, there'll be an argument against it. It's the #1 killer of our kids, folks. We can put people on the moon. We can build skyscrapers, huge monuments like the Hoover Dam, and we can't keep our kids safe in schools. I think people just need to wake up and take action. Stop accepting the excuses. Stop buying the rhetoric. It is not a Democratic or a Republican issue. It's nonpartisan. Do not accept any excuse from any of the politicians. This needs to be solved, and it needs to be solved now. We do not want any other parents to go through what we've gone through. It's as simple as that.
I don't know, Chad, what do you think? Second Amendment issue, mental health issue? I don't think it's a Second Amendment issue.
Buck Meir, Tate's dad, first of all. I want to thank Karen and Mark, Lieutenant Willis, Special Agent Brandon.
And I say mental health,
We met a couple folks that gets
pharmaceutical
work behind the
issue.
scenes. You guys obviously busted your tails, and we appreciate it. And you know,
love to
I
take
kind of want to
Big
echo
Pharma
what
down.
Steve was saying here. This is a deep issue, and it's not going to be an easy one to solve. And it's more than the gun.
There you go.
Our kids are not doing well these days.
There
We're
you
in a
go.
mental health crisis. So the gun is just a tool. So we got to look at other things other than the gun. We got to see what we can do to support these kids better. And that, both parties should be looking at that. This is a nonpartisan issue. We need to solve this because no parent should go through the hell we're going through.
This guy's got it put together.
And lastly, you know, we've taken care of 3 legs of November 30th. And there's still a 4th leg, and that's the school. And it's time for the school to pony up. It's time to break up that administration country club. And it's time for change. Because we've got 4 kids here dead. And nobody wants to take any accountability. That needs to start tomorrow. Thank you very much.
It's heavy stuff.
My name's Nicole Bosley. I'm Madison's mom, and I will echo what Steve and Buck has mentioned. I do want to thank the prosecution team, Karen, David, Mark, the advocates, everybody that worked on the case. They have really been that piece that's kind of held us together and really pushed for us and made sure that every step we took, we kept continuing forward. But what I really want to thank is the 3 families that stand with me. This has been a really hard road, and the friendships that I've made with these families are friendships that I wish I didn't have to make the way I did, but these people are some of my best friends, and I thank them more than they will ever know. What I want to say mostly is, yeah, we have a verdict now. We have a guilty verdict for both parents. We have crossed those 3 lines of getting accountability on that end.
Good.
But right now we have a verdict. We have to execute that verdict. We have to plan for change. We have to reinforce it. This is not just a verdict for attention or media. This is a verdict that actually needs to be put to the platform that it is. How are we going to use this verdict to actually make that change that needs? We need to start focusing on the school and its failures, the things that they don't want to admit to. That's going to be our next plan for change. They are
Could be a catalyst for change for schools.
going to see these families rise up against it, and we will be here fighting every second for our children because they are not allowed to forget any of them. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Craig Schilling, I'm Justin's father. I'd like to start out addressing Karen and the prosecuting team. Thank you so much for your hard work. I can't thank you enough for your efforts in all of this. I'm humbled to be in your presence. Thank you. My heart's beating out of my chest. I'm shaking and so nervous to be here, and I appreciate all of you for your time here. And I really can't say enough about the importance of what we just went through. It's a monumental decision, and the verdict was the same. And I believe that moving forward, it's very important as a society to set the right example for our children and future generations, and come together and use our power of thought and our power of emotion and everything. We can change. We can push forward. We can get through the difficulties of life together if we try. We can't turn our heads to these kind of problems that we face today. It's so important to emphasize the necessity of going after and holding those accountable for their insufficiencies, so to speak. That's where we're at. We have to move forward. We've put much behind us, but there's still so much there in front of us. And I stand with everybody, with these families here, and with Karen and the prosecution, and hopefully with many others, to work on that change that we need, and to go that extra mile and put forth that extra effort to address these problems. I can never imagine being here, and I don't ever want anybody else to have to be here like this. This is a very difficult thing to go through. But I'm happy to have
heavy subject matter, but
and all the
at least
advocates,
good news
all
for the
community
families.
members,
All
everybody that
3
has
verdicts were
given so much
secured
and helped out so much. I thank you all, and I look
against
forward
the
to the future.
son, the
Hopefully it's
mother,
a
and the
brighter one.
father, and it really
you.
seemed like,
We have time for some brief questions. Yes.
all right, that's probably good right there. It seemed like that there was a lot of accountability. I mean, there should be, because if you looked at the home, it was in disarray, literally and figuratively. If Jordan Peterson were here, he'd tell you, the room was messy, the mind was messy, or something like that. I don't know, but that's what it was. It was so gross. It could be deeper. It could be deeper, and here's why I think, and I've gone on stream about this before, but there was a litter box right next to the kid's bed where he puts his head to sleep. He could have been suffering from a acute case of toxoplasmosis. I don't know what kind of pharmaceuticals this kid's on, but they're always on something. It seems like today every kid is on something. So whether it's amphetamines or what else, the SSRIs, antidepressants, it seems like a bad idea. I am a gun guy. Josh, I only recently have really been exploring. I've always hunted, and I was a bow and arrow guy for a while. Although, as they say, if you're hunting and you don't get anything year after year, public land hunts, are you a hunter? Or am I more of just like someone who likes to go out and enjoy nature? So, I've harvested a few things with a rifle, and I do own a few other pieces, let's say. So, I don't know. Is it wise to rattle off all the things you got? I don't know. In America, it seems like they're rounding up the legal gun owners, and who knows? I don't know. Josh, you're from Australia, right? I think. I don't know. But yeah, it just seems like if something were to happen, something goes down in America, law enforcement is never close enough. You have to be able to defend yourself. And this, it's bad out there. So, if you look at the major cities, let's say, where I am, it's nicer, it's fine. Yeah. Where I am, it's pretty safe. But the major cities in America have really gone downhill, and very quickly, too. In Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, Philadelphia, they all seem to, I was talking to my wife. We were going to travel to Texas, and we were discussing whether or not I should transport my weapon. And one of the things that we were talking about was, you could bring it to Texas. That's where we were going to go. But if we were going to fly into, say, like New York or Los Angeles, I don't think I could bring it there, which is where I need it the most. So, yeah, I've heard that gun laws worked in Australia. I wonder if they could work here. I wouldn't ever advocate or be a proponent for it. Only because, I don't know, the Australia government, I don't know if there's too many parallels, but if you look at the government here, it really gets tyrannical very quickly, with weaponizing the Department of Justice, and, pulling you out of your home with, they have a warrant, but is that warrant based on probable cause? Well, they don't even have to tell you until they're ready to, bring you to court, basically. So it's a little ridiculous. The grand jury process is the whole process, let's say. When we look at the reasons that we started, America and the first 10 amendments, the Bill of Rights, and why we created those, it was because the British and the way that they were, dragging us out of our homes without a warrant, and, subjecting us to sham trials with no good reason, overcharging us, taking our property. And wow, in just a matter of 200 years, America's devolved right back into the thing that it hated the most. But I'll say this, the pendulum always swings. Pendulum always swings. So if you want your guns, then your kids will have access to them. Yes, that is one of my biggest concerns, and that was actually one of the biggest things that was a part of this trial that stuck with me, was the way that the Crumbleys just had their weapons lying around, ammo just lying around. I don't even like my kids. They're at the age I'm not ready to train them with weapons yet, and I understand that it's a children's. In America, years ago it was categorized as a children's activity. I don't know if that's still true today. But I don't even want them to be aware of the presence of a weapon in the house yet. They know that I hunt. They know that I have them, but they don't know where. I don't want them to be thinking about it. I don't want it at the front of their mind, always seeing a safe. Not yet. So that is one of the bigger things. And there's a balancing test that I did in my head. I mean, right, okay, my kid could find this, but if I do everything right, they won't even be able to get into it, right? But if someone comes knocking at my door, and there's been a few people, and like I said, I live in a safe neighborhood, but every once in a while, you wonder, was that a scammer or is that a real solicitor trying to do business? I don't know. So, you gotta wonder what's possible, and what is it? In America? The Second Amendment's pretty well codified. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. So. Shame on me if I let someone break into my house and bring harm to my family. But that's the extreme end of the spectrum, right? Extreme end of the spectrum. Yeah, most of the time it's just something good to have and to practice with, but you don't want to have to use it. So don't fantasize about it. Yeah. So maybe we should take a look at. Oh, it's a good place to end it. I was going to say that I don't know if you're still with me, Josh, but the Crumbleys, what they did was they had their weapons all over the house. Every room was in shambles, and it was a bad look. Not just a bad look; it was a bad vibe. It doesn't really speak to what it really was. I mean, it was a bad atmosphere to raise a kid in. That's my take on it as a father, as a gun owner. Yeah, I don't trust my kids in the public. I pulled my kids out for that reason. Is one of the reasons, not just the weapons. That's half of the equation. But like I said, I don't think you can take the weapons away in America. I wouldn't want to, but I would be very interested in exploring the role of pharmaceuticals. I think Australia, the gun laws in the 90s, I think that's when they were implemented. I'm way out of school here. I'm way out of court. But SSRIs and all those, and if anybody's on them and they're working, that's great. But I do think that's the risk outweighs the benefit. And it's not always a school shooter. There's a lot of suicide. There's a lot of other things. So if I had something ripe that I could bring against the pharmaceutical industry, boy, I would do that in a second, but nothing. So if you have anything, reach out. That's as good a place to end it as any. I would, appreciate everybody. Remember, knowledge is power. Subscribe for more if you didn't already. I should have been saying that the whole time. I forgot. But, yeah, I appreciate everybody who drops it. It's really fun. I like this vertical streaming format, too. I'm going to be doing it more. So take care. Be well. See you soon. Take care, Josh. And there we go.